blockade becomes illegal. And in our view, the blockade is illegal, and if the blockade is illegal, Israel cannot enforce an illegal blockade. So as of the 31st of May, when the raid took place, our legal opinion is that the blockade was illegal on the 31st of May, and therefore they could not board the ship. So the boarding of the ship was in itself illegal, and the enforcement of the blockade through the boarding of the ship was in itself illegal. So therefore, our next conclusion is that Israel could not have been allowed to attack the vessels militarily, and not to board these vessels by force, capture the vessels, attack the passengers, imprison them on the vessels, 8 hours of imprisonment on the vessels itself, forcibly remove them from the vessels, and steal their private property in the form of cameras, computers, money, clothes, etc. All their belongings were taken away, including computers, cameras, and many of them had large sums of money. Each one of the so many of the passengers we interviewed said they were carrying anywhere from 5,000 to 30,000 US dollars or even euros, which they had mobilized themselves and were taking this for humanitarian work in Gaza. So I don't know, must have been hundreds of thousands of dollars or euros. All of that has been taken and has not been returned. So they have stolen the property of the people on the ship. So there are very many violations that have taken place. In fact, one of the passengers we interviewed showed us his phone bill that had come a month later. His phone has been used in Israel. It's an itemized billing, and he showed us his bill. I saw that phone bill where it's been used, and an amount of sum against it, and place where the phone has been used is Israel. So they have just taken it. Individual soldiers have taken it, taken all their property. So nothing, their suitcases and bags were returned to Turkey. And it was a huge go down in which passengers were told to come and look for their belongings several days later. And when they all went, they were empty. Their computer cases were there, but there was no laptop inside it, and so on and so forth. So everything, Israel has been asked to return all these things, but we don't even know where all of this is. Now, I'm going to stop here for a minute. If you have the time, I want to say a little bit about the response to our report, but I want to know if you have any questions up at this moment.
Perhaps I should do my job and ask as well, and again, don't be shy. Be interesting to know, Shanti, if you have a theory on why the Secretary General flipped, as you put it earlier, and why he changed stance completely.
Yeah. And in fact, it's not only flipping, but he did damage, because he set up this parallel panel, which was a very lame mandate, which kind of has, what shall I say, undermined the investigation that the Human Rights Council set up. Theory. I think the Americans got to him.
Talking about the Americans, another issue, one of those 9 was not only Turkish, he was American. He was an American citizen as well.
Yes, he was an American
citizen. Were there any kinds of representations made from American authorities to you on behalf of their American citizen?
Not at all. In fact, the Americans, through their ambassadors in Geneva, there are 2 ambassadors in Geneva, we asked to see us during the course of the investigation, because we were there for 2 months, although we traveled out to Jordan and Turkey and the UK to conduct some of the interviews. They wanted to meet us, and they advised us to delay the investigation. In fact, they did not make any representation on behalf of their citizens. They said that what they said was that the peace process had started again in Washington at that time. There were peace talks, and they said that our investigation, if we produced our report by the end of September, which is what we were asked to do, the resolution asking for an investigation to be set up was done in the 14th session of the Human Rights Council, and the date was exactly the 1st of June. And the resolution said that the investigation must be completed and the report presented at the 15th session, which is 2 months down the road, end of September. The Americans said, don't do this, don't hand in the report, don't complete your investigation, because the peace process has started, and what you produce may undermine the peace process, that it may affect the peace process. So you shouldn't do anything to create further disruption of the relationship between Israel and Palestine, and your report may do that. And we said there are many other things that's going to damage the peace process, like the refusal to lift the freeze. The freeze on the settlements was ending, and there was no indication at that moment that Israel would extend the freeze. There was no indication at that moment that they would extend the freeze, and that alone would disrupt the peace process. Not this report. This would be the least of what would stop the peace process. So actually the Americans told us not to go ahead. And we said that we got our mandate from the Human Rights Council. If they had concerns about the timing of this investigation, they should talk to the President of the Council, and the Council should instruct us not to continue or to delay. We could not just listen to one member of the Council and stop the work. We didn't receive our mandate from the Americans. So, of course, they were not very happy with that. But
no, I think all that speaks for itself. Nothing to add there. If no one, Imtiaz, do please use the microphone. I'll let you introduce yourself, Imtiaz.
We're talking about Afghanization of the war. Pulling out
thank you.
sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Shanti. My name is Imtiaz Muqbil. I write a column in the Bangkok Post with some intensive coverage about the Palestinian and Middle East issues. First things first, thank you very much indeed for flying out here for this. It's very, very significant and very important for us to hear some very useful insights into what exactly the report says. I have two questions. One is the report is publicly available now?
Yeah.
And can we find it on the internet?
Yes, you will find it on the internet of the Human Rights Council 15th session.
15th
If
session.
you click on, it says 15th session, you go to the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, ohchr.org, and you look for Human Rights Council 15th session, the report is there.
Thank you. The second question is on the point you made earlier about the Israelis wanting to do, I think, I'm not sure of the exact words you used, but to the extent where they came out with a desire to cause so much violence that in order to stop the stream of black. That seems to have been the policy in all cases, whether it's the attacks on Lebanon or attacks in Gaza, which is, and they've said this publicly several times, that the idea is to hit the opponents so hard and teach them such a lesson that they never try and do anything again, whether it's the Hezbollah in Lebanon or the rocket firing from Gaza or from anywhere else. So the objective is clearly to teach them a lesson. Now, since this last blockade, this last ship, if there have been no more attempts to break that blockade, would you say they've succeeded again?
But there have been attempts.
There have been?
Yeah. There have been.
And have they received this similar treatment?
But they have not able to go. It has not deterred. There was an attempt, and they were threatened, and so they kind of held back a little bit. But there are other plans to continue with the flotilla. But I have my personal views about whether going on these flotillas is useful or not. Not because Israelis will become, it's a successful ploy on their parts to cause this as much violence as possible. But I think we need to think a little bit more strategically on what to do to break the blockade, rather than just send, because it's costing a lot of money in my view. And it's not, doesn't seem to have an effect. So one has to rethink. It's my personal view. One has to rethink the strategy of the flotilla. But it is not deterring people. They are still planning, and there was a plan. I don't know whether they did it or when they will do it, but there was a plan for an all-woman flotilla as well, a ship with just women on it to go. So they just still want to do it. It's not deterring the activists. Yeah.
As I remember, there were a couple of Jewish-only ships that tried to break the blockade after this as well, right? But that didn't work either, of course. Time flies by always when you're having an interesting time. Shanti, would you like to make a brief conclusion, perhaps?
Yes, I need to. No, the thing is, let me see. I just want to say a little bit, if you will give me that time, to come to the response when we presented our report to the Council. Of course, Israel was given the floor first as soon as we presented our report, and Israel completely condemned it and said it was biased, and it didn't believe that the Council would give it a fair hearing, and they completely rejected out of hand anything we had to say. Because countries like Turkey, Jordan, and other member states of the Human Rights Council, especially the developing countries, supported the report. The Americans, the Americans started off by saying that at the Council that they regretted the tragic loss of life and injuries, and they were very sorry about that. But they said our report had unbalanced language, the tone and including its tone and conclusions, because we said that the level of violence used was unnecessary and brutal. And they said that and which was a fact. If you had the time to see the forensic reports and the way the unnecessary levels of violence that was used, and there are several that are now, according to forensic reports, who didn't die but are going to carry injuries for life. There is a man who's had his colon shot, so he's carrying a bag outside for his excretion, etc. They're going to carry these injuries. Some of them are going to carry these injuries for life. Anyway, so they said it was unbalanced and urged that the report not be used for actions that could disrupt the direct Israeli-Palestinian talks now underway. So again, they were urging that the findings of the report should not be used, because it would disrupt relationship, not only the peace process, but also the relationship between Israel and Turkey. They said they have to now heal, and therefore the report should not be used much because it would disrupt that relationship. That's what they... and they then said that they supported the panel of inquiry set up by Ban Ki-moon, and they said they're waiting for that, and that is the only credible report that they will listen to. But the fact is that report is not going to do any fact-finding or any findings, and therefore they are now, that's why I'm saying the Americans got to Ban Ki-moon, and so that would offset our report. And I must tell you this, it's not only the Americans, it's the Europeans also. While the Europeans were much more, on the 27th we presented our report, it was in the afternoon at 3 o'clock. The interactive dialogue was only held the next day. So when we presented the report, there were some very good statements made by Europe and European Union and things like that, but For example, the European Union suggested transmitting the report before this Council